everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you guys are new. Today's video is going to be a drugstore versus high-end video. We're going to run through all of the categories of makeup, and I'm going to let you guys know where, if I could only purchase the category from one or the other, would I purchase it from. Sometimes I feel like the splurge on high-end is worth it, but most of the time I feel like you can really get away with getting all of your products from the drugstore at a very affordable price. However, drugstore prices are going up lately. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it with the primer category. So for primers, I feel like most of my favorite primers are from the drugstore. So this is kind of like an easier category for me. I'm gonna go ahead and say drugstore because I feel like primer is kind of an unnecessary step. I do really enjoy it, and I do feel like for me, it does make a big difference. But if I were to skip it, I could also make it work without it. So it's not something that I really typically like to splurge on. I do have a couple high-end primers that I've enjoyed in the past. I think I only have one in my collection right now that I can think of, but I have a lot of really, really good drugstore ones. So I'm gonna have to go with drugstore on the primer category. Foundation, however, was a really close call, but one kind of product in particular makes me lean towards drugstore. Let me explain. I do really like to splurge on foundation. It's one of my favorite categories. If you guys saw my ranking video, then you know that foundation listed very high on that ranking. I can have it listed in the eye down below, but I just ranked all of the makeup categories and how much I really like them. So yeah, that was a fun video, but foundation was really high on the list. And I do like to splurge on them. However, the Misha and the Purito BB cream have really changed the game for me as far as drugstore foundations go. And honestly, so is the ColourPop Pretty Fresh. If I just had those two in my collection, I would be perfectly happy. They're both from the drugstore, so I feel like I have to give that category to the drugstore because two of my all-time favorite foundations are from there. Kind of lumping the BB creams together as one because I'm not purchasing the Misha one anymore, but yeah, I really, really like both of those. And honestly, some of my foundations that I kind of feel so-so about are high-end, so I feel like the drugstore still can take the cake on this one. Next up is concealer. And I actually feel like for concealer, I'd probably say high-end because I've had really, really bad luck with drugstore concealers. I do really like the Flower Beauty one, the Light Illusion, but this one I feel like I run out of so quickly. So if I were to think about it in comparison to some high-end ones, I wonder if the value is about the same actually, but that one in particular I do really like. However, my favorites are like the Too Faced Born This Way. I really like the Rare Beauty one, so those are both high-end, and I just feel like in general, I prefer a high-end concealer. I just have had so much bad luck and tried so many bad drugstore concealers that I feel like that category is just a high-end kind of category for me. However, for powder, we're gonna have to go back to the drugstore because I've really found some good ones. I'm really loving the CoverGirl one in the pink compact. It's called the CoverGirl Clean Fresh, and it's just a pressed powder. I really like that one. I really like the RCMA No Color powder. That's really a drugstore pricing. You get so much product, and it's a really good value. I love that one so much. I just feel like for me, powder is not worth it, the splurge. I also really like the No. 7 pressed powder, so all of those being affordable and drugstore kind of products, I definitely think that powder could be a drugstore kind of category for me. The next category, I'm definitely gonna have to give to high end, and that is gonna be bronzer because I really like expensive bronzers. I wish I didn't, but like my favorite bronzers, I like the Charlotte Tilbury Contour Wand for a liquid option. I really like the Fenty Cream bronzer. I really like the powder bronzer from the Charlotte Tilbury Film Star Bronze and Glow duo. I like the powder bronzer from the Anastasia face palette. I like the Too Faced bronzer. I like a lot of high-end bronzers. I have a couple drugstore ones that I like, but I just think this has got to go to high-end. I think that they do cream and powder bronzers really well, and I just would be so sad if I couldn't have any of those in my collection or if I couldn't purchase high-end bronzers anymore, but I could kind of give away the drugstore ones I have. Same thing kind of goes for blush. I really like high-end blushes. I know that the drugstore does have really great blush formulas, but in my experience, I have found the best blush as a whole in the high-end kind of category because a lot of cheap, I say cheap because they really are, or affordable blushes I feel like have really cheap packaging, and I don't like that. I cannot stand when packaging breaks when you're using it. It's just like a big pet peeve of mine. So I think that blush is a lot of fun to splurge on because you typically are getting a better package for it. I know it's mostly about the formula that really matters, but honestly, I can't stand when my packaging is broken or malfunctioning or something, or it just doesn't look good. I feel like that's part of the experience of buying and using and enjoying makeup. So this definitely is gonna have to go high end for me. Even though products like, you know, the Flower Beauty blush balms are really nice from the drugstore, I just prefer the category in general from the high end kind of side of things. I think I'm gonna have to say the same thing for highlight because of the packaging. I just feel like those kind of compacts break so easily from the drugstore. Not all brands, but a lot of them I feel like are pretty flimsy. Again, my favorite highlight is the one from the Charlotte Tilbury Film Star Bronze and Glow Duo. So I just feel like if I had to choose, I would choose that one in particular, and it's high end, so I'm gonna kind of have to give it to that. I'm not really a big highlight person anyways, but I just cannot stand the compacts that break, so this is gonna have to go to high end as well. For eyeliner, however, I feel like drugstore really has stepped up their game with eyeliner. Used to, it was really hard to find a good eyeliner, at least for me, but now I've got really great liquid options, a great pot option, several great pencil options as well for eyeliner. So I definitely think that the drugstore is the way to go on this. I only own a couple of high-end eyeliners and I reach for my drugstore ones way more than any of my high-end ones. So for sure, eyeliner is a drugstore kind of product for me. I'm sure you're not going to be surprised for eyeshadow, but for sure eyeshadow's got to be high-end for me. There are a couple formulas that I've tried from the drugstore that I really like their eyeshadow formulas from, but for the most part, I really don't like drugstore eyeshadows. So this is definitely something that I A, like to splurge on, and B, think the splurge is worth from the high end for sure with eyeshadow. Whether it be liquid, like a single, or a palette, it's got to be high end for me, for sure. For brows, I'm gonna have to go with drugstore, and the only reason is because I don't own any high-end brow products. This category I could kind of leave out of this video because I'm not really big into brows. I'm kind of feeling like a little bit indifferent about the products that I have in the brow category, but because I don't have any high-end ones to even compare them to, I feel like I can't really pick for this category. So I'm just gonna have to go with drugstore because it's apparently been good enough for me so far. So I'm just gonna have to leave it at that. But yeah, for this one, I'm just gonna go with drugstore. So I decided to lump the lip categories together. So I put lip liner, lip gloss, and lipstick in the same category because I feel like for all of them, I'd probably choose drugstore. I just feel like there's a lot of really great lip options. They also really have really pretty packaging. They of course have great formulas and everything as well. And there's just so much selection. This is a product that I feel like we've all been using for forever. So I feel like a lot of drugstore companies have just figured it out and have really great products. So for sure, lips is gonna have to be a drugstore kind of category for me. Next up, for setting spray, I'm gonna have to go high end on this one. And specifically, I'm gonna do that because of the long lasting setting sprays. I feel like the drugstore has some really good like dewy options, but as far as a really long lasting one goes, that's not very like sticky or smelling like alcohol or something. I just haven't had good luck with like a lot of long lasting ones from the drugstore, but I do have good luck with some from high-end brands, especially the Urban Decay All Nighter. The Ben Nye Final Seal was a little bit pricey, so I'm going to kind of consider that high-end as well. So because of that, I'm going to have to say high-end. But if we were just talking about like dewy ones, I might have gone drugstore, but I'm trying to think of it as a whole here. So yeah, that's how I'm gonna have to go on that one. Last up is gonna be mascara. And for mascara, again, this is gonna have to be high-end for me because I just love a good high-end mascara. It's disappointing to me that the drugstore doesn't have better mascaras, but unfortunately my favorite drugstore mascaras are not cruelty-free, so I don't even purchase them anymore. I really miss some of the mascaras I used to use, but I don't know, I have like some favorites from the drugstore and they're pretty good, but I feel like when I'm going to get a mascara, I just have better luck in the high-end kind of brands because sometimes I find them at the drugstore and they're just okay. Other times they're terrible. Sometimes they're good. So I feel like I kind of waste a lot of money trying new mascaras, especially from the drugstore. Whereas sometimes I feel like high-end, there's kind of like that expectation for it to be a little bit better because you're spending sometimes $20, $25 on it. So I just feel like they're a little bit better overall, like in general, versus sometimes drugstore brands have 15 different mascara options. Maybe one of them is a real true gem, but the other 14 might be terrible. So that's kind of where I'm at with that one, but I really just tend to enjoy high-end mascaras for sure. But those are all of the categories that I have to kind of do the drugstore versus high-end. I'm actually a little bit surprised because the high-end categories one by one. So we had 7 high-end categories and then 6 drugstore ones. I thought it was going to be opposite of that, but they are pretty close. I think that makes sense though, looking at my collection, because I do kind of have like half and half, and I'm pretty happy with that. I do like to splurge on some products and like to save on some others, but be sure to let me know down below in the comments what you guys would say. How many categories do you go to the drugstore for, and how many do you go high-end for? Do you like skew one way or the other, or are you pretty similar to me and you're kind of in the middle? Because I feel like I'm pretty in the middle, especially like looking, like I said, at my collection as a whole. I just really like both categories. So I had a lot of fun creating this video and really thinking about where I would like to purchase each category from. So I hope that you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and also consider subscribing to my channel if you enjoyed it. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.